What we just saw was within a split second of becoming a deadly mishap. It also represents a workplace hazard that is extremely important to be aware of: the hazard of stored energy. Stored energy. Most of us work around it every day. For example, equipment such as motors, control panels, conveyors, and hydraulic systems contain electrical and mechanical stored energy. The stored energy in these systems can become a serious hazard if it's suddenly released. That's why there are safety procedures and regulations, such as lockout-tagout, that deal with these hazards. But there's another kind of stored energy we might be less familiar with. We're talking about the sheer weight of things in our workplace, such as loaded pallets, heavy equipment, and bulk materials such as grain, salt, or animal feed. That weight is a type of stored energy also called potential energy. The higher the object is from the ground, the greater its stored energy. Another kind of stored energy to be aware of is called elastic stored energy. Take a bungee cord, for example. When it's slack, it contains no stored energy. But when it gets stretched out, the energy needed to stretch it is stored there until it's released. In the workplace, the same kind of energy in much greater quantities can be found in ropes and cables that are used to move heavy objects and equipment. Out in the workplace, stored energy hazards can be hard to see, often because the objects with the stored energy aren't moving. But when they start to move or fall, the release of that stored energy can create deadly hazards. Unfortunately, stored energy hazards of this kind are a major source of serious workplace injury. But there are two important steps we can take to protect ourselves. We can increase our awareness of stored energy hazards, and we can become more observant for them in our surroundings. It isn't possible to show every example of stored energy you could encounter. Every workplace is different, and the hazards can change from day to day. So let's visit some actual workplaces where we can find real stored energy hazards. We'll start with receiving areas. Try to identify as many examples of stored energy as you can see. Okay, let's take another look to see if you missed anything. What kind of mishap could these hazards lead to? Here's an example: a dock leveler. This is why it's so important to be aware of the hazards and take steps to protect people nearby. Ocean containers and trucks that unload product through rear doors are another source of hazards. When opening the doors, the weight of the material can cause it to suddenly spill out or force a door open and cause an injury. Trucks that raise their hoppers to unload material also present a stored energy hazard. If a hydraulic or mechanical failure happened while the hopper was raised, it could suddenly drop. If a person were between the frame and the hopper, they would be crushed instantly. So it's extremely important to stay clear of the area between the frame and the elevated hopper. Trucks that dump product from the underside of the hopper are much safer because the hopper remains stationary. Rail cars are another potential source of stored energy hazards. For example, some locations move cars into position using car pullers. As the winch pulls the car, huge amounts of elastic stored energy builds up in the cable. If the cable breaks or comes loose, the energy in the cable would be released with explosive force, much like a giant whip. A person hit by the flying cable could be killed instantly. This location has a system of heavy-duty shields to protect the operator if the cable broke or came loose. This is a good example of engineering measures to protect workers from stored energy hazards. Following your facility's car puller safety procedures will provide additional protection. Opening the sliding doors of a boxcar also presents stored energy hazards. Before opening the door, check the door rail system for damage. Keep in mind the T-bar handle can be a safety hazard. The handle may contain stored energy that could cause it to quickly turn on its own, possibly injuring an operator. To manage this hazard, one person should open the latch while another person maintains a firm grip on the handle. When using a come-along with a wire cable, stay clear of the cable's line of fire in case the cable breaks or disconnects. If the door is hard to open, reject the car or contact the railroad service crew. Some rail cars have heavy bulkhead doors inside that slide on support rails. The hazard occurs if someone tries rocking a jammed door to dislodge it. Unfortunately, doors have come off their rails and fallen on people, causing serious injuries and death. To protect yourself, it's important to follow the safety procedures for inspecting and moving doors. If a door jams or is difficult to move, contact the railroad service crew or reject the car. Next, let's look at some bulk storage areas. How many examples of stored energy can you identify here? Now let's see how many of the stored energy examples you found. At first glance, the products stored in bins or large mounds don't look especially dangerous. But think about the amount of weight, the stored energy that we're looking at here. Just 1 cubic yard of salt or grain can weigh about 1,300 to 2,000 pounds, or about 600 to 900 kilograms. A sudden collapse can send hundreds of tons of product crashing down. This is a situation where awareness of stored energy hazards can save lives. Always stay a safe distance from the face of a storage mound. If the product appears unstable, notify your supervisor so the problem can be corrected. Grain bins are another place where stored energy can turn deadly. Tragedy most often strikes when a person enters a bin and attempts to dislodge grain that's bridged or caked. Grain can fall on the person and bury them, or they can break through the bridged grain and get buried or pulled into the flowing grain. Because of these and other serious hazards, avoid entering bins altogether. If it becomes necessary, carefully follow the confined space entry procedures for bin entry. Sadly, the tragic consequences of grain bin hazards become clear in this true story, told by a man whose brother became trapped in a bin.
My brother's name was Wayne. He was a truck driver for the competitor, driving a feed truck, delivering feed to the farms, helping in the feed mill, whatever needed to be done. He was basically like a jack of all trades. And growing up, I couldn't have asked for a better friend. Him and I, we fought like brothers normally do. We always worked together as a family. That's the way my mom and dad was. We worked together on the farm and we played together. And my brother, he would have done almost anything for anybody. Always offering a helping hand, full of life, full of joy. No one knows when he entered into this bin. They found him there, the second shift personnel found him at about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. Everyone else had left this facility and had gone home. They looked out and they saw my brother's car still there, wondering how come that car was still there. That's when they started looking for him. That's when he looked in the bin and saw just his hand sticking out of that corn. You know, you have an opportunity to make the right choice or the wrong choice. And that can determine with what tomorrow is going to bring. My brother, he made a very poor choice when he entered that bend, or whether he just shoveled on the bend without the fall protection on. But we have policies and procedures, they're all in place. At this facility, all of the policies and procedures were in place. They knew what they were supposed to do, but they were not followed. And that's when it comes back to individual choices. You know, there's nothing I can change about with what happened to my brother. But if through this video someone watching changes the way that they do things, this changes their life, then, you know, in a sense, then I believe that for my brother, there's some good that can come out of this whole situation.
This tragic story should be a reminder to us all about the hazards of stored energy and just how important it is to be aware of those hazards. Warehouses are another place where you can find plenty of stored energy hazards. See how many you can find. So, how well did you do this time? Pallet loads of stacked product are a common sight in many warehouses. What makes them a potential hazard is their weight combined with the height they're stacked. For example, a pallet load of 50-pound, 23-kilogram bags can easily weigh 2,500 pounds, 1,134 kilograms, about the weight of a small car. The higher that pallet is from the floor, the more stored energy it contains. Remember the close call we saw earlier? That incident showed just how important it is to be aware of stored energy hazards. Being aware improves your ability to spot hazards.
Yeah, I need a forklift to Warehouse 9.
So you can avoid them or have them corrected. Totes can also present hazards we should be aware of. Fully loaded, they can weigh hundreds of pounds, a lot of stored energy, and a potential hazard. Lifting and moving totes with the same care as a fully loaded pallet will keep that hazard under control. Another common stored energy hazard involves transporting heavy equipment or parts. To move this material safely, it's important to use equipment that can safely handle the weight, such as this cart specially designed for the task. Move the parts or equipment with care and be sure to avoid pinch points. Maintenance areas. Each one is different. But look around. See how many examples of stored energy you find here. How well did you do? There are plenty of potential hazards here. Although this monitor isn't as heavy as some of the other things nearby, it's still a stored energy hazard. That could have been a lot worse. But the point is, being observant and aware of the hazard could have prevented this mishap. But awareness goes beyond the workplace. When you get home, take a look around. You might be surprised at what you find. Things such as bookshelves, heavy furniture, and large TVs can become serious hazards. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission estimates that in 2005, at least 3,000 children under the age of 5 were admitted to U.S. hospital emergency rooms after televisions tipped over on them. Between 2004 and 2005, more than 100 deaths, mostly young children, were caused by falling furniture or televisions. Whether we're at work or at home, the variety of stored energy hazards we can encounter is nearly endless, and the hazards can change from day to day. So the key to our safety is awareness. Awareness of the hazards we could encounter and awareness of our surroundings. This awareness will help us to either eliminate stored energy hazards or stay out of their line of fire. We'll not only protect ourselves, we'll also protect the well-being of our coworkers and our family members. Rail cars are another potential source of stored energy hazards. For example, some locations move cars into position using car pullers. As the winch pulls the car, huge amounts of elastic stored energy builds up in the cable. If the cable breaks or comes loose, the energy in the cable would be released with explosive force, much like a giant whip. A person hit by the flying cable could be killed instantly. This location has a system of heavy-duty shields to protect the operator if the cable broke or came loose. This is a good example of engineering measures to protect workers from stored energy hazards. There are also some important safety procedures that will provide protection. When attaching the hook to the car, be careful to avoid pinch points. Inspect the anchor point, hook, clamps, sheaves for any loose, frayed, or damaged conditions. Make sure the tracks are clear of obstructions, including snow or ice. Check that the deadhead pulley and winch are in good operating condition. Make sure that all personnel are clear from the cable's line of fire. Then, turn on the alarm or warning light 10 seconds before moving the car. Opening the sliding doors of a boxcar also presents stored energy hazards. Before opening the door, be sure the boxcar wheel is chocked. Then set the manual brake. Place a blue flag in front of the car indicating work is taking place inside the car. Then check the door rail system for damage. Keep in mind the T-bar handle can be a safety hazard. The handle may contain stored energy that could cause it to quickly turn on its own, possibly injuring an operator. To manage this hazard, one person should open the latch while another person maintains a firm grip on the handle. Next, hook the lever end of a come-along or chain puller to a sturdy anchor point near the ladder, but not to the ladder. Inspect the come-along for wear or damage before using it. Then connect the hook to a strong anchor point on the door. As the door opens, make sure all personnel stay away from the fall area of the door. When using a come-along with a wire cable, stay clear of the cable's line of fire in case the cable breaks or disconnects. If the door is hard to open, reject the car or contact the railroad service crew. Some rail cars have heavy bulkhead doors inside that slide on support rails. The hazard occurs if someone tries rocking a jammed door to dislodge it. Unfortunately, doors have come off their rails and fallen on people, causing serious injuries and death. To protect yourself, it's important to follow the safety procedures for inspecting and moving doors. If a door jams or is difficult to move, contact the railroad service crew or reject the car.